The Township of New Brighton in Gqeberha celebrates its 120th anniversary this year. A township popular for its political history, entertainment, sports, culture and recreational activities. Residents there are determined to push education, though, business safety and cleanliness for the township's transformation. Newzroom Afrika's Siphosethu Booi joins us now with a brief history. Let's start with that, Siphosethu, of the township.
Oh, yes, and Duduzile, I think the most important place for Newzroom Afrika today to start at when you speak about the history of New Brighton is the St. Stephen's Anglican Church, and I'm joined now by Reverend Lulami Lengesi, who'll speak to us about the importance of the church during the times of the struggle. Ukubaluleka kwe-history nenkonzo yama-church, specifically when we speak about politics and the importance of the church during those times. Speak to us about that.
Good morning, Sethu, and to the viewers back at home. Sethu, as you know, we are celebrating 120 years of New Brighton. And we are telling the New Brighton story, which is the St. Stephen's story. We're telling the St. Stephen's story, which is the New Brighton story, our story. Let me just take you back in terms of the history of this church. This church was conceived in 1869 by the Anglican Church in town. They built St. Stephen's for Amamfengu, because the Fingos came from Pedi and they were working in the harbour. And you must understand that there is a peculiar relationship between the British and Amamfengu. That's a story for another day. But this church was built in 1970 at Richmond's Hill. As the colonial imperialists developed a sense of wanting to be having their own space and not having black people around themselves, in 1902 it was moved to Emakambeni, which is now Parsons Hill, in the areas of Dias Road. In the 1920s, it was moved to Costin together with the people. By then, New Brighton was starting to be a township, and they moved to Elalini, and this church was built Elalini in zincs and yeah. So from there, in 1939, the establishment where we are now was built and blessed in 1941. That's a brief history of St. Stephen's. But the role of this particular church played in the life of New Brighton was, as I said, there's no New Brighton without St. Stephen's, no St. Stephen's without New Brighton. In that hall, entertainment, New Brighton and the entertainment was happening there, in the form of jazz. In the afternoon, people will come here for jazz. They will come here to entertain themselves. Because there were no other facilities for entertainment. There would be plays played here, theatre plays by the names of John Kani, Winston Jonas, Omuzwandile Maqhina and them. So people will flock here to come and be entertained. And as well, this hall was a hub of politics. The ANC formations, the BC formations, the PAC formations were meeting here for their meetings, for their strategies and everything. And many of them were arrested from this hall. And some of them were injured from this hall, were shot at from this hall. So this church became a center of the activities of the community. Hence, no New Brighton without St. Stephen's. And we moved from there up until 1994, where we received the democracy and liberation. To your question, that the church, what happened? Actually, you know what the church did? The church handed over to the political leadership. I think that is why we are in this turmoil, because the church decided to hand over. You know, because during the struggle, the church was in the forefront. And the religious leaders felt that the political leaders have arrived from exile and from prison, so they must take off. So we took a seat back. And I think the problem started there, for the church not to be in the forefront, not to be part of where the church would be a sense of ethical, moral soberness. So that has just disappeared because the church is not there. But the church still has a role to play in the midst of that. What we are doing here at St. Stephen's is a continuation of what was started by our fathers and mothers to make St. Stephen's an integral part of the community. There's a Taibo gym that is happening here from Monday to Fridays. There's a soup kitchen that is happening here. It is earmarked for the children from Pendla Primary School and from members of the community as well that are coming here. And you'll be surprised when you see these people that they really need this soup. And we are doing it only for one day. We wish to have a good Samaritan out there who would be able to come and assist us. So is to be able to assist. Not only on giving soup, but on making the people of New Brighton to be able to make their own soup than to be given the soup. But this can only be a starting point. With regard to the youth that you mentioned and asked about a month ago, there was a march organized by the South African Council of Churches in this metro to the police station, and we came and have a service here at St. Stephen's, praying, that may God intervene in combating crime in this matter. Now, we said at St. Stephen's, what then after the march and the service? We are in conversation with a group called Abahlobo. These are ex-inmates, ex-criminals. We have formed a group that speaks around about that crime has no gains. So we're partnering with them and the Cowan High School. And we want to go to other schools as well. So that young people can be told by those who have the experience, that those who have been there, that this does not pay. So that's part of St. Stephen's role in combating crime in this part of New Brighton.
Reverend Lesi, thank you very much for making time to speak to us here on Newzroom Afrika this morning. Duduzile, that was a thorough background in terms of the history of New Brighton, of course. You will know New Brighton. It's quite known now. It has a new name. It's one of those hotspot areas for crime in the metro, which then gives it a negative feel and connotation to the beautiful history that surrounds this particular township. It has produced the likes of Tatu Sizwe Zako, Tatu Zola Yeye, just to name a few, so many others, Tatu Winston John, Tatu John Kani. The list is endless. And fortunately today we will be speaking to some of those people, as well as just the general public of New Brighton, including the youth. Just last year in November, 6 people were shot and some were stabbed not far from this particular church here. So there's a new generation that is really faced with many challenges of crime, while the old generation still cling on to the hope of what their beloved New Brighton used to be. So throughout this day today, we go back in history, but balancing how this new generation of New Brighton can change the narrative for this particular township that's known for crime here in Gqeberha.
Siphosethu, Booi, thank you very much for that report.